I want to start this out by saying two things. One, Hollow Knight is a top 5 game for me, and two, Silksong is incredible. Now, let's continue. In mid-2020, there's a hair on this. In mid-2020, I played Hollow Knight for the first time. I got the normal ending, then I beat the Radiance, then I 100%ed the game, then I beat Pantheon 5, and then I eventually got all the Steam achievements and started speedrunning for a bit. I think my PB was like 52 minutes, it wasn't anything crazy. Suffice to say, I liked the game a little bit. Then I heard there was a sequel in development based on one of the bosses, Hollow Knight Silksong. So I waited, and waited, and then waited. By the time Silksong released 5 years after my initial playthrough, after radio silence for that entire time, I don't know, man. I wasn't hyped for it at all. The game just like dropped the trailer and said, alright, 2 weeks, have fun. I mean, don't get me wrong, of course I was gonna play it. I loved Hollow Knight. But, you know, I wasn't as excited for it as most other people were. Now, did it live up to the hype? Aye. The name's Gladiated, but you can call me G. And this is Hollow Knight Silksong. Silksong. A force strong enough to crash every single retail on the market. A game that makes AAA companies upset at its $20 price point. What could be better? Plays just as tight as the first, looks just as nice as the first, and sounds just as magnificent as the first. Let's not just talk about what's the same, let's talk about what's new. In Hollow Knight Silksong, you play as Hornet, not the Knight, so you have different stuff to do. Most of it is the same, but quality of life. Like the dash, that has an arc to it when you use it in the air, and you can hold the button to run. New toolkit is a float, which can be used to go over enemies, but it's mostly for traversal. Wall jump is the same, except you can press the dash button to go straight up.
Yeah, come on, man. I was taught about Hitler like in 4th grade, so...
You were taught about Hitler in 4th grade?
Dude, I learned about slavery in 3rd grade. I feel like Hitler in 4th grade.
What am I hearing? A needle throw, which dashes you towards it and does a little bit of damage. Oh my god, new thing!
Is the game worth the $20?
Hold on, hold. It is! Can't be used in combat, but it's mainly for traversal. Double jump, this one's exactly the same. And finally, this super jump thing. It feels pretty shoehorned in. You can only use it in like 5 areas and 3 are required. But it's part of a kid, huh? You have the needle in, which you can play to get into like 3 specific areas. The beast call, which lets you warp to this game's stag stations, aka fast travel, which is actually worse than the first game. The first one let you go anywhere. This one is only to those specific spots. And then the down one, which I don't know the name of, it's just the Dream Nail. It works like just the Dream Nail, except you can only use it in like 4 areas and 3 are required. Overall, Hornet does feel better to control than the Knight from the first game, but it's mainly because of the dash and not much else. Now, the charm system has been completely overhauled. Instead of just having slots for different charms, not only are they categorized now, but there's stances, which can change how you heal, how many charms you can have equipped of what type, and even what attacks you do. And there's actual reasons to run these specific stances too. Maybe there are a bunch of flying enemies, so you want to throw some poison on them. Maybe there are enemies that let you wail on them, so you run the lifesteal stance. Or maybe you hate the downward swing, so you just go back to basics. Also, instead of having 3 spells, you can only run 1 at a time. Oh my god, dude. That fight is fast. Oh shit. But there are more, and that's about it. Oh, she talks to people now. That feels weird, but it wore off fast. The game takes place not in Hollow Nest this time, but in Farloom. As far as I could tell, it's different from Hollow Nest. All the enemies are different, all the NPCs are different. Hell, no Bafanada. There's only about 3, maybe 4 things that connected to the first game, and they're all deep into Silksong, so we'll get to them later. Anywho, you were taken to Farloom by these pilgrims, who, more or less, just want to get to the top of the lands to show devotion to their god. There are 2 types of pilgrims, the good ones and the bad ones. The good ones are normal, there's nothing special about them, and the bad ones are reanimated by some god.
As far as I can tell, the game kinda doesn't explicitly tell you.
You of course break free from your confines, and curious as to why you yourself were chosen, you decide to head up there to see for yourself, running into some bugs on the way and maybe help the less crazy ones. Going from the blazing deep docks, to the craw-infested Greymoor, to the terrible, awful, never go there Hunter's March. It actually isn't that horrible, but it's a huge dump in difficulty for being like the 3rd area. It should be way later. After getting softlocked from getting into Belheart by you, we learn more about why the bugs are doing what they do. It wasn't bribery, at least. So breaking them free, we learned that some of the bugs made it and some of them didn't. So this kind of thing that's going on is acting more like a virus. You know, the longer you have it, the more you're affected. I'm bullshitting, by the way. This game's kind of confusing story-wise. I think that's what's happening. I'm not entirely sure. Making our way to the Citadel, we see more of this haunting, as the game calls it. Full-on reanimating dead bodies. Probably because they're closer to their said god. That god being at the top of the Citadel, who we later learn is the only replenishable silk left in these lands, besides Hornet herself, which is probably why she was captured. That's the main story up until the final boss, so let's talk about the game's qualities. Silksong has a lot of extra things to do in between losing to Morwing. I hate you so much. I'm lying, the second Savage Beastfly fight is harder, like way harder, like oh my god. Obviously it's a Metroidvania, so there's a ton to explore, and obviously it's a Souls-like, so there's a lot of bosses. What the? Yo, why are you back? But one thing that sets it apart from its original incarnation, and something that makes it kind of worse in my eyes, is view objectives in the town. Is there side quests? In Silksong, some of these towns will have bulletin boards, and on those bulletin boards, you can accept quests. They typically range from 4 different types of quests. The first, and the easiest, just deposit X amount of currency, either being the things you use to craft your weapons, or the things to buy anything else. The best ones, in my opinion, being the tracking missions. Some guy or something will go missing, and you have to follow the cookie crumbs and figure out where they went. These are exploration-based, they usually end with some fun thing to do. I have no quarrels with these are all great. Then, there's other ones to give them X amount of items. But you haven't seen a cloth before. Where do you get any of those? Well, you get them from enemies only after accepting the quest. I will admit the cloth one is a bad example, but something in Act 2, like getting pins from a specific enemy, and they don't even drop all the time, means you have to grind in a Metroidvania game. And don't you worry, I saved the worst for last. There's another type of tracking quests in here, but it doesn't show you where to get them? Where do I go then? I looked up all of these. I had no shame. I spent the first one, the easiest one, I spent an hour on and cut no progress. Look for the purple flowers. Bro, I've been trying! And yet, it gets worse. Remember the X amount of currency ones? Well, you're a brokey in this game. There are times where you're gonna be forced to buy things in the game, and there's not enough supply to keep up with the demand, and that's even if you don't lose your money when you die. Similar to the first game, in fact, exactly like the first game. When you die, you leave behind a husk that you have to run back to collect again to get all your stuff back. And if you die before collecting it again, you lose all the stuff you had. It's a mechanic from the first game, it's nothing new. I'm not really upset about this. I'm more upset about the fact that you have to grind in a Metroidvania game. I've been here before. Something else I picked up about Silksong is compared to most Metroidvanias, the game feels somewhat linear. I don't know, I'm no expert in Metroidvanias. I've played like the original Hollow Knight, of course, Metroid Dread, Yoku's Island Express, Unsighted, and then like something else. Of those that I've listed and fully completed, Silksong feels the most linear, besides maybe the second half of Metroid Dread. Another thing that I and a lot of other players picked up on is its difficulty. What am I supposed to do there? What? Was Hollow Knight an easy game? Yes. In some scenarios, it was very hard. But for the most of the game, it was alright. Getting from place to place, unless your name was Deep Nest, was typically not too bad. Enemies are very telegraphed in what they do, and there's enough math shards to go around. Now, throw all of that out of the window. Primal Aspids deal 2 damage. I repeat, Primal Aspids deal 2 damage! A common theme in Silksong, in fact so common there's a mod to get rid of it, is that most enemies in the game will start dealing 2 hearts of damage. Oh, awesome, you deal 2 damage as well. Oh, awesome! Give me a break. This isn't inherently an issue. The issue is that your mask total stays about the same. So after you've spent about 10 hours scrounging around parts to get back up to 6 hearts, it doesn't matter because you're still gonna die in 3 hits, buddy. You're a new enemy, and you do 2 damage because of course you do. Why wouldn't you? Oh, that's why it's called Act 2, because everything in Act 2 does 2 damage. That makes sense. Is it a gigantic jump in difficulty? Yes. Does it feel like Team Cherry realized too late that the game was easy, so they decided to tune everything to do 2 damage? Kind of also, yes. But I feel like that was intended. I believe it was the developer's intent to place Silksong after Hollow Knight. In Hollow Knight, there were some hard-ass fights. And if Silksong was just as easy as Hollow Knight, I feel like not a lot of people would really care or get bored or... you see my point. So, while overtuned, I do feel like Silksong being hard is fine. When Hollow Knight came out... I actually could not find a source for this. I may just be lying. I'm not sure, actually. They were pretty adamant about not changing the game's difficulty. And the same is going to be true here. Okay, I see the patch. I'm done pretending about it in post. They are changing some difficulty aspects of the game, and only a week in, so it's not so bad, but that was my experience from the first playing the game, and so I'm gonna talk about it, alright? If more changes like this are to be done is to be seen, but I'm acknowledging that it exists, and it is getting better. Cool? Cool. Now, let's get a little deeper into the game. Similar to Hollow Knight, Silksong has multiple endings, and just like those multiple endings, they are a pain in the ass to get. What the fuck? Where am I? I'm naked! This is probably the biggest complaint I do have about Silksong. God, I'm a big complainer. It's a good game. I swear it is. I'm not lying. Silksong is actually split into acts. Act 1 goes from the start of the game to the Citadel, where you have to defeat the last judge, but before that, acquire every bench around the world that you have access to. Surprised I didn't open the door. Oh, Act 2 has you going from the start of the Citadel to the final boss, but before that, you need to get 3 melodies scattered around the areas in the Citadel. And to get Act 3, you need to complete every side quest possible, get every flea possible, which is this game's grubs, they're exactly the same, and make a house. Material can be assembled in a home. Great. Awesome. Thanks for the clarity. In a home. Really? That's where I have to go. I need to go to a home. Hey, does anybody have a home that I can borrow? Actually, I don't remember how hard this was. I think it cost money. I'm pretty sure it cost like quite a bit of money. So you had to grind for it. Once you do all of that, you get access to one more side quest. This guy says the big ball of yarn upstairs can be subdued. But to be able to subdue it, you need to do another fetch quest. I already found one of the items already, but the other 3 could only be found after accepting the quest, which means you have to do it after completing every other quest. Second verse, same as the first. I looked them up. I don't care. I had zero shame. I looked all of these up. So we go back upstairs to the Silk God and wrap her up, and that's Void. That's what connects it to the first game. Unrelated, but only now do you get access to the ability to warp to fast travel points. I felt like mentioning it now because you only get it about 30 hours in! There's even some shamans here. And they can't really help with the fact that the void is cracking in the world because the Silk God is fighting back. So they're frauds. I gotta do everything myself, man. Taking a trip down to the Abyss, we learned that the Silk God is fully engulfed in void at this point. Even if we were to go down there and put her out of her misery, there is no chance we can even get there, let alone getting back up. So we consult with the shamans again. This time they can actually help us. Thinking about what's weak to void, we remember a special little white Yo. Welp, it's been fun, man. Thankfully, we don't have to be doing all that. At least, not for this. We actually gotta hunt down 3 guys. 2 dead, 1 mostly dead. Beating them in their dream worlds, we obtain their hearts, and taking them back to the shamans, they implant their thoughts into Hornets so that she can craft a white flower of her own using her silk. I triple checked, this is what really happens. It does show us little baby Hornet though, so all's forgiven. Taking the white flower back down to the Abyss, we can dive deep into the void, beat the Silk God and her child, and then get the heck out of there. But as we're starting to surface, it seems the white flower is starting to break. On one hand, this doesn't make sense, you know, the whole mind to think, whole will to break thing. Why is he helping us? On the other, I feel like a damn 5-year-old in a candy store, man. That is so cool. The night spits us out of the void, the roots that it took on Farloom start to dissipate, and then credits roll. I've been talking quite negatively about Silksong, and that's for 2 reasons. 1, because I'm brave enough to do it, and 2, because Hollow Knight's a top 5 game for me. And of that top 5, it is the most well-made. It's the most flawless. Any flaws that Hollow Knight had were either minuscule, like some charms being nigh useless, or didn't matter to me, like the first area being confusing, or Path of Pain, which is awesome. I loved Path of Pain. I'm sad Silksong didn't have something like that. I guess the snow area, which was fun, but you know, it's not really the same. There are two money hurdles in the original Hollow Knight. The first being the Lumify lantern, which there is so much to do before you actually need that, and there are ways to get around it. So by the time you actually do want to pick it up, you'll have plenty of money to buy it. And the second being the unbreakable charms from the Grim Troop, which, yeah, you kind of do just need to sit down for an hour, I won't lie. But at least they're optional, dickhead. Again, I really want to emphasize, Silksong is incredible in everything that it's done. Its world building, its visuals, its soundtrack. Oh my god, have you listened to the Clockwork Core? Holy! The highs of Silksong are pretty notably better than the highs of Hollow Knight. But the lows of Silksong just drag it down so much for me. And I didn't even talk about Bilewater. Trust me, I didn't even mention it. Silksong's lows are either too in your face, halt the gameplay to a standstill, or make you stare at an IGN article. And I don't want to do any of those. The original Hollow Knight flowed like water. Silksong flows like, I don't know, bumpy water. You get my point. I give Silksong a 4 out of 10 because the maggots are the worst design mechanic ever. Whoever designed that gets a torture chair specifically in hell. Anyways, have a good one.